before I let you go, I want to
Yes.
break down on Doge has been going through government agencies and firing people
Mhm.
left and right. And you pointed out a story where they fired, I believe it was 5,500 workers, 5,200 health and
From
human
the Health and
services.
Human Services.
Go into that. Look, I got to be honest with you in advance. I love the fact that RFK Jr. is put into that position. I think it is, and take the piss out of me on it. Fair enough. I think it's insane to me that one of the things that he pointed out was childhood illness and
Mhm.
how it is ballooned. And U.S. spends more than any other country on healthcare and gets worse outcomes than any of those countries.
Mhm.
And so when he comes in and says, look, we should not be having this many kids with illnesses. There's something wrong.
Mhm. Mhm.
And he points out these illnesses have ballooned over the course of the last X number of years. We're doing something wrong. We need to inspect whatever
Mhm.
that is and look into that. As somebody with a childhood illness, I listen to that and I'm like, thank you. Because it's true. A 16-year-old, 12-year-old should not be dealing with the level of illness that they've been dealing with in the sense of it ballooning. And it directly affects economic outcome. It directly affects quality of life, all of those things. We should be protecting our kids. And there shouldn't be these kind of ideological barriers that get in the way of us doing that. Like this stuff shouldn't just be, we're doing it because we're doing it because we're doing it. It should be, we have reasons, rationality. There is science behind it. We're looking into it. It's not sacred ponies that we're trying to defend. We're actually trying to get to some level of what's
Mhm.
true.
Mhm.
I applaud that.
Mhm.
Now, whether he can do it, that's secondary, right? Like it's always in the making of, okay, that sounds good. Can you do it? Is there a reality to the thing that you're trying to accomplish? So I think that's what I suppose we're going to find. I am not for the firings. I hate that, and I don't think gutting government is a way of dealing with it. Managing government is a way of dealing with it. Give me your take on this. I think you're going to disagree with me on this, but what's your thoughts?
No. I agree with your premise and probably 90% of what you just articulated. The problem is, and this became evident during his confirmation hearing, he doesn't follow the science. So from a policy perspective, in terms of the health status of our children, you are absolutely right. But when it comes to vaccines, he's absolutely wrong. And the evidence of that is what we're seeing as it relates to measles in Texas. We are watching an outbreak of measles in Texas. We thought measles had been eradicated, and the area in Texas where it's manifesting itself, they have a lower vaccination rate than the other parts of the state. And I think the data is showing something like 90% of the children that have been affected by this over the last few weeks are either non-vaccinated or their vaccination status is unknown, which would indicate to me it's unknown because they're not vaccinated. So, and then when you listen to him during his confirmation hearing, and they were talking about the science, he hadn't read the studies that they were talking about. And here's the other thing: he doesn't have a background in public health.
No, he's a lawyer.
Right. So
Yeah.
how are you going to? To me, there are certain. Okay, so I think I'm a pretty smart guy. I think I've said this on the show before. I'm
You're very
smarter
smart.
than the average bear.
Yes, you are.
But if you need brain surgery, and you see me coming into the surgical room putting on rubber gloves, you might raise your hand and say, "Hold up, Charlie. I think we got a problem here." So
to be fair to him, he is a corporate lawyer, but
I he does not have, so he has successfully sued pharmaceutical companies.
Yes, that is his framing. I just want to point out that's his framing. That companies steal companies do things that are in their best interest, even if it's against America's interests. And drug companies, especially when you have a sacred pony like vaccination. And by the way, he's vaccinated. He's not against vaccinations. If you listen to his argument, his thing is, how do we have drugs that do not have to go through the same regulatory bodies as other drugs? And if we indeed, as lefties typically do, believe that corporations, if given an inch, will take them out, if there are no, let's say, guardrails, if there's no oversight, and they can get a buck, they're going to take that buck, even if it's against your interests. Why do we believe that vaccinations and companies that do vaccinations are different?
And when he was simply asked his stand on vaccinations during his confirmation hearing, he would not answer the question clearly. He did not. Well, so
I'm just saying he's skeptical.
I can't understand how someone without a background in public health is now put in charge of a public agency whose focus is public health.
Right. Right.
That you don't want me in charge of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission.
Actually, I do. I would prefer you in charge of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. I think you could do a damn good job with that.
Well,
I'm sure.
Thank you. But I know a lot of people who are better prepared for that than I. And here's the other thing. Have you heard the term quademic?
No, I haven't heard that one.
Okay. They're saying we're not in a pandemic. We're in a quademic.
Now, what is that?
COVID, the flu, RSV, and one other virus that we're now over the last couple of months, the rate of increase in these various viruses. There are four. I can't remember what the other one is, but there are four viruses that are now on the rise in the country. And so the term you're starting to hear is quademic.
No, please, I'm sorry.
And you got a guy in charge of HHS that doesn't understand public health.
I am in the mindset that we need a reset.
Okay.
I am in the mindset that many of the structures that have been put in place and have been accepted as sacred ponies may need inspection. A corporate lawyer that is skeptical of corporations, to me, is a good arbiter of that, because he's skeptical of corporations in a way that many people in Health and Human Services prior may not have been. Now,
put him in charge of the SBA. Put him in charge of the Commerce Department. Put him in. If he were nominated to be the Secretary of Commerce, fine.
No issue.
I'm with you. Not public health.
Fair enough. I accept
public
that.
Health.
I totally understand where you're coming from on that. I think we're getting something wrong.
I'm not anti-Robert Kennedy. He's a square peg in a round hole. He's a checker on a chessboard.
No, that's fair. I accept that. I do accept that.
Okay.
I totally accept that. I mean, look, you're right. He's a lawyer, and they put him in charge of Health and Human Services. It's just so happened that he cared. That was the issue he cared about. He wanted files for JFK open.
I care about a lot of things. I care about a lot of things. I care about you, but you don't want me running your finances.
You might do a better job, man.
Well, you haven't called and asked. So, I mean, I care a great deal about you, but just because I care doesn't mean I know enough to manage it.
No, I accept that. I'm only thing I'm pointing out is I like the fact of what he is focusing on. I like the fact that he is going into it skeptical of corporations. I like the fact that those same drug companies and corporations are freaked out by what RFK being in that position and looking over what they're doing, saying, hey, you need more research on this, or at the very least not accepting their initial premise. I guess for me, I agree with you. He may be a what do you call it? A checker.
He's a checker. He's a checker
checker
on a chessboard.
I accept that. There are positives. That's my point. And I can live in those
Okay.
positives until it turns out to go to hell. When he goes to hell, I'm gonna be like, Wilmer.
I'll say this, and then I gotta go to class.
Yeah.
Yes, there are positives, but when you're talking about public health, the negatives have to be minimized to the nth degree. That's my thing. There you could make mistakes on finance. We can recover from that. But when you start making mistakes on public health, people die.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You've got measles. You have an illness that we thought that we had eradicated. We now have cases of measles on the march in Texas. And we can't have that. We can't have that.
Professor Wilmer Leon, or Dr. Wilmer Leon, he's a political scientist, nationally syndicated columnist, and host of Connecting the Dots on YouTube. Definitely check him out. My man, thank you for this. I really appreciate it.
And let me apologize to you and to your audience. I got stuck in traffic. I couldn't get to my office in time. That's why I had to do this over my phone. I couldn't do it on my computer.
You don't need to apologize to anybody. You're perfectly fine.
You deserve the best, and I couldn't give it to you today. I apologize.
We disagree.
Okay.
I appreciate you joining me.
Call Robert Kennedy. Let him figure it out.
Have a good one. Be safe.
Later, man.